Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We are here with Monadnock United Way, Live United, and today we have a special show where we'd like to introduce Rayleigh Wilson and her mama, Jewel, who've been part of our maternal child health program for quite a while. And so we'd like to talk with all of you a little bit today about how she has been part of our program and how she's benefited from the great things that are happening. Hi, Rayleigh. So,
Hi.
Maternal Child Health is a program of home health care, hospice, and community services. It's a program that supports pregnant women and their children up until the ages of up to 19. And we have social workers and home visitors and nurses who really support women and their families and single dads as well, getting through that whole parenting process. Can we have the slide? The thing that we like to mention mostly when we're working with maternal child health is that parenting is hard work, and raising a child is one of the most important jobs in the whole wide universe. And partnering with maternal child health as a parent means that you can get a lot of extra support that you might not otherwise have. With extended family being farther away these days and economics being as they are, sometimes it's really helpful to have somebody that you can just receive some support from. So today I'd like to introduce to you Jewel and her little baby Rayleigh and talk with you all a little bit about their involvement in the maternal child health program. Jewel, can you tell us a little bit about how you came to know us and what started your involvement with maternal child health at home health care?
Okay, well, I found out I was pregnant when I was 17. I was in denial about it, and Drew, her father, pretty much said, you know, you need to go get tested because I'm sure you are. And so I went to the hospital, and I was pregnant, and they gave us one of your brochures, and they suggested that we come get in contact with you.
And where were you living at that point, Jewel? Were you living at home with your parents?
I was living with Drew and his family in Ackworth. I was going to Fall Mountain.
And what was the news about when you realized by test that you were in fact pregnant? What was the first thought that came to your mind?
I was scared.
Scared?
I mean, you're not just responsible for you anymore. You're responsible for a whole nother person. And it was hard at first, but Becky helped me accept it, and maternal child health really helped me get through understanding it. Yeah.
So Becky is one of the home visitors with the Home Visiting New Hampshire program that supported Jewel through her pregnancy. So when Jewel signed on to our program, Becky was able to visit with her on a weekly basis all through her pregnancy and for the year until till Rayleigh turned 1. She had a nurse who was able to come visit her at her home to talk about any of the medical questions that may have been coming up prenatally. And she also had a social worker, Mary Ann, who talked with her and Drew a lot about housing options and the benefits that might be available to them as pregnant and parenting parents. So then you found out you were pregnant, and you started to get excited about it, and Becky was coming to see you and offering you all kinds of information about the growth and development of your baby inside your belly.
Yeah, I really didn't know, anything about being a parent or how babies are supposed to develop or even what was going on with my own body when I was pregnant. So Becky came and the nurse Kay came, and they both gave me a lot of information about, what was going on with me, why I might be feeling this way, what to expect when I go into labor, stuff like that. And then go see her. And then when I had Rayleigh, they helped me with kind of getting the hang of parenting, what I should be expecting, what I should understand, you know, what might be something I would take her to the doctors for. If I had a question that I thought needed to be answered, but I didn't think I needed to, you know, call the doctor, I could call Kay and ask her.
And run it by her. And
Yeah.
get some ideas. And was Drew very much involved with
Yeah.
the father?
Yes. He got a job the minute that we realized I was pregnant. And then after high school, he started working for Septic Pro, which is a local septic company. And that's a really good job for him. He has a lot of room to grow, and he's really stable.
And I think the things that Becky and I and Marianne and Kay were also impressed about was the fact that both you and Drew were able to graduate. That you both worked really hard through your high school years, knowing that you were pregnant and managing all of the sicknesses and the emotional ups and downs, but you both managed to finish high school, which is huge. There are some other things that happened during the course of work with maternal child health that that caused you to want some more support from Becky. And some of those were around sleeping routines and trying to figure out how to help Rayleigh sleep better. The other was finding the right, feeling empowered enough to talk with your physician when things were not working so well for Rayleigh health-wise. And so you were able to get some support around that. And the other thing I really was hoping that we could talk about today were some of the bigger stressors that went on as a pregnant mom, as a parenting teenage mom, and how Becky and the maternal health program sort of helped you through some of that. So I'm sure that most of our audience is really excited to hear some of your tips about the whole sleep routine, because tell us a little bit about that. And Rayleigh was about 6 months, you said?
Yeah, she wasn't on a normal sleep routine, you know. All the papers that the doctors would give me, and, you know, they say, oh, your baby should be sleeping this much at, you know, this age. And she wasn't sleeping. She had a lot of health problems, and
Can you tell us a little bit about that in terms of, we'll be talking a little bit more about her health and advocacy, but I think she's going to get down. But in terms of how her health was impacting her sleep routine, how did you manage to work through that?
Well, it was difficult. You know, the first thing you want to do when you have a baby is you want to pick them up when they're crying. You know, it's just your instinct. But there comes a point where picking them up isn't helping them so much anymore.
When you're trying to help them to sleep?
Yeah.
So 3 of the basic things that you told me the other day that really helped you when you were trying to help Rayleigh fall asleep at night was?
Make sure that, you know, they're not hurt or they're not, you know, make sure that they're not hungry, make sure that they're fed and stuff, and make sure that they're not wet or, you know, there's not something wrong, you know.
Uncomfortable, right.
And as long as those things are all checked off as good, you know, sometimes it's good just to let them cry it out, because they need to learn how to cope by themselves.
And how to self-soothe
Yeah,
and how to self-regulate.
That's the word I was looking for.
So my understanding is that you and Becky had many conversations and withdrew, and we sort of came up with a plan about how you were going to help support Rayleigh through the night.
Yeah.
You all had to sign on to it because it's a tough decision.
It was tough. With Drew working many, many hours a week, and me being a full-time college student, you know, it was hard because it's frustrating. You're tired, they're tired, you just want to sleep. But what we did was, when she would wake up in the middle of the night, you know, first of all, we got her on a routine. So, you know, she ate at this time, she had a bath at this time, she went to bed at this time. And then if she would wake up during the night, we, you know, let her cry for 5 minutes, because sometimes babies just cry in their sleep. I mean, she's over a year old now, and she still does it. And we'd let her cry for about 5 minutes just to see if, she was just sleeping or if she was actually awake. And then if she didn't stop crying, we'd go into her room, and one of us would, and we'd just kind of rock her and hold her, for about 5-10 minutes, and then put her back down and let her see if she can go back to bed, and then wait another 10 minutes, and then kind of just...
And what I liked hearing you say before was that you also kept the lights dim, you kept it all very quiet, so there wasn't a lot of stimulation that would
distract
get her
her.
excited and distract her.
Yeah, because her sleeping was a concern for me, but I was also concerned about, putting her in bed with the bottle. It can cause a lot of complications as far as, they can choke on it. It
Rots
rots their gums and their teeth if they have them. So it's just...
So at that point, when Rayleigh was having difficulty sleeping at night, was she also going to bed with the bottle? So had you already taken that away from her, or how did you manage that piece?
Well, when she was having difficulties, what we would do at first is just give her the bottle. It was the easiest thing. We were tired, she was tired. That made her sleep, so that's what we did. But then when Becky, kind of gave us more information about it, about why it's not good to give them the bottle when they're sleeping, and, we were first-time parents. We didn't exactly know, and she worked with us to kind of come up with a plan, and, she sleeps through the night. I mean, she's in her own room now. She really only wakes up when there's something wrong. So...
That sounds fabulous. So how long did it take, do you think, from the beginning to when you all sat down and decided that you really needed to commit to a plan to how to help support Rayleigh through the night to the times when she was sleeping pretty regularly through the night? How long do you think it took?
I mean, in all, probably like 3 weeks to a month. But like the first week was really bad. I mean, it was terrible. And me and Drew felt horrible, Like I said, the first thing you want to do when your baby's crying is pick them up. And then the second week, it got a little bit easier. And then the third week, it was, pretty much easygoing. I think she had like one time when she woke up the third week. And then by the fourth week, she was just, it was her schedule. She was used to it. She learned how to soothe herself.
And what were her ways to soothe herself? Was she a thumbsucker? Did she twirl her hair?
She twirls her hair. Sometimes you can catch her sucking on her thumb. Oddly enough, she likes to play with her feet. I don't know what that's about.
But you've learned to sort of recognize the cues for when she's tired and sort of self-soothing now. You know that's also a signal from her saying she's ready to sleep.
Yeah, that was another thing that Becky taught me. I mean, I didn't know how to tell. I mean, obviously, if your baby's screaming, they're
Something
either
isn't
hungry or
right.
tired or need their diaper changed. But what's daunting as a first-time parent is which one of those is it? It's kind of like a process of elimination. But as you go along, Becky kind of taught me how to pick up on her signals. And, part of it just kind of comes naturally. And, Becky kind of helped me with that. And, I know that when she's rubbing her eyes or playing with her ears, she's generally, ready for bed.
For bed. Okay. So can you tell me a little bit about what a weekly visit might have been like with Becky coming to your home?
Well, first she'd come in and we'd say hi, and I'd kind of give her an update on what's been going on that week with Rayleigh. She'd give me some information papers. Like each week, she brought out a new lesson. So like when I first had Rayleigh, she brought out what to expect from your newborn. At 6 months, she brought out what your baby should be doing between 6 and 12 months, developmentally, all that stuff. And then we'd kind of talk about the concerns I had or what I think we could work on as far as Rayleigh. And
so one of the pieces of information that Jewel is talking about is the Parents as Teachers curriculum, which is a curriculum that the home visitors use, which is full of really important research, current research and information about what's best for growing children and for pregnant moms. So Becky can come full of information tailored to your needs. So when you're indicating you might want to talk about something, Becky can go back and research that and figure out what it is that you might need some more information about. So that sounds like that worked very well for both of you.
Yeah, it did.
So going back to the sleep routine, so it sounds like Becky brought a lot of information. You and Drew talked about it, decided how you were going to approach this, and came up with the plan that best resonated for you. And it turns out that was the plan that worked best for Rayleigh, and so you've been through that. Tell us a little bit more about, you indicated you had Rayleigh had some medical issues early on. And you really needed to listen to yourself about how you felt Rayleigh was doing and how to talk to your doctor about that, or Rayleigh's doctor about that. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay. When she was first born, she wasn't having normal bowel movements. And of course, we lived with my mother-in-law. And my mother-in-law kind of was like, you know, guys, that's kind of weird, you know, she's not going enough. And so I kind of called the doctor and I was like, hey, this is what's happening and, you know, what can I do about it? And they gave me an idea. Well, this happened for about, I'd say, her first four months.
That's quite a while.
I mean, we tried everything, like any natural, I mean, we tried all the natural stuff and, you know, applesauce. Now I can't remember, but all the stuff you can.
Different juices.
Yeah, prunes and all that stuff. None of that worked. So then the doctor suggested putting her on a little bit of Miralax, and we tried a couple of different medicines to kind of help her. And then I was just like, this is not okay. Like, my daughter is in pain, and when she could go, it was very hard, and it was really hard for her to get out. And
it was physically painful.
Yeah, physically. I mean, she
yeah.
would scream and scream, and you could see it in her face. Her face would get like beet red. And so I asked Becky, I was like, what am I supposed to do? Like, you know, the doctors aren't listening to me. They aren't listening to Drew. They aren't listening to my mother-in-law. I mean, we've tried everything. And Becky kind of, the next week, she brought out some information about how I can be an advocate for my daughter. How, you know, I'm the parent and I can tell something's wrong and I need to act on that. And that's the thing, is that when she was in the doctor's, she was, you know, a perfectly healthy baby.
course.
She's a happy baby. And the only time she wasn't happy was when she was trying, you know, she was having a blockage or when she was trying to get one out. And the doctors didn't see that. So they didn't understand what I was talking about.
Right.
And
So learning to advocate was more about learning how to tell the story, learning how to tell what the symptoms were, that kind of approach?
yeah, and making, you know, the doctors realize that, look, this is something that's going on, you know, and I feel really strongly about it. Because, like I said, the doctors only see her for a half hour every how many months, you know? And
one of the other things you mentioned a while ago, Jewel, was the fact that you felt like you were stereotyped as a young pregnant mom, and that you felt that you just weren't being heard
exactly.
because of your inexperience.
And, you know, sometimes that happens, you know. Doctors see me and think, you know, she's a first-time mom. She's got the first-time mom vibe where she's going to
worry about everything.
Everything and anything under the sun. And that was hard to overcome. And, you know, eventually I just had to be like, look, there is something seriously wrong with Rayleigh. It's not, you know, helping anything. It's not getting better. She needs to see someone. And so the doctor finally kind of, you know, they realized when I stood up for her and advocated for her health, the doctor kind of clicked. Oh, really? There's something really is wrong here. So they ended up sending her to a gastroenterologist, pediatric specialist in Dartmouth. And they diagnosed her with something called slow transit.
So you were right all along.
I
Your
was
gut
right.
was right.
And slow transit is pretty much when your feces go through your intestines. As they go through, it kind of sucks out a little bit of water. And what happens when you have slow transit is it takes out too much water. So
the
they're
bowels are very hard.
extremely hard, extremely, painful in the process of it happening, trying to go. And the doctor up at Dartmouth kind of gave us a different way to look at it other than just normal constipation. Kind of, there's not really anything you can per se do for it, but just to help us, help her get
Understand.
through it.
Yeah.
And just knowing that I was right, knowing that what is wrong with her was just a big stress relief.
So your advice to other young parents is develop a really good relationship with your pediatrician. Let them get to know you and hear your story and know that you will be advocating for your child.
Yeah.
What are some of the other things that you think would be helpful for other young parents to hear?
I just think that it's really important if you think something's wrong, I probably let it go far longer than I should have. And, it was harder on me and Drew. It was harder on Rayleigh. It was just kind of harder, on my mother-in-law, on my brother-in-laws. Like,
everybody's
everyone,
wondering,
we all
yeah.
lived in the same house. My brother-in-law's room were right next to ours, They were in high school. They
could hear her crying when she was in pain.
all night long, So I think it's important just to, above all, be an advocate for your child.
I think one of the other things that Becky had mentioned was sort of being able to write down and document what it was that was actually going on.
Yeah, she did
so that you
suggest
could take that into the pediatrician and say, really, we're writing it down. This is what's really happening.
Yeah, and that actually, when they decided to send her to the specialist, that's what we actually had done. Becky suggested that, and so for about 3 weeks, we, wrote it down, and then she had her normal checkup, and me and Drew brought it to the doctor, and we were like, look,
this is what it is.
this is what's happening. We're not joking when we say there's something really wrong with her. And that suggestion, it worked.
And how is Rayleigh doing now?
She's fine.
Great.
Slow transit, generally, kind of, the doctors told us to expect it to kind of go away. After about a year, it normally goes away.
Okay.
And now she, perfectly healthy, happy baby.
Yes, and she is. It was a true testament to that. I think one of the other things that I liked hearing from you was that you were learning to take advantage of every single doctor's visits. You knew what to expect. You had a list of the questions. As you said, you had your list of documentation about what was going on with your child. You were really honest with your pediatrician. So, this doesn't feel right to me, and something's not right with my child. And being able to maintain that honesty without being disrespectful was really helpful, and I think probably helped your relationship quite a bit with your pediatrician in terms of getting things done and feeling empowered.
Yeah, and it can be quite stressful sometimes because you almost want to shake them and be like, there's something wrong, there's something wrong, but you can't. And it's hard for people like me or Drew. I'm not quite as reserved as Drew is, but, when we're around people that we aren't with every day, we're kind of shy. It's kind of important to know that your daughter's pediatrician, your son's pediatrician, they're just like your doctor. You know what I mean? You have to be open with them.
Right.
They
can only do as much as they can with the information you give them, so
exactly.
It's important.
And I think that Becky kind of helped us get out of that shell and really,
really communicate well.
Yes.
That's so important. We've learned that in many different ways. And being the expert on your own baby. Yes, these pediatricians are very knowledgeable and they have a lot of resources at their fingertips, but you are the one who knows your baby the best. And learning how to listen to your instinct and communicate that was really important. So that was good. One of the other things that you wanted to share with all of our listeners today is how you manage stress. Can you tell us some of the things that really stressed you out a lot when Rayleigh was much younger, or even now, or even when you were pregnant? What were some of the things that that were difficult for you to manage?
Well, I think the first thing that was difficult that every young parent goes through is, you can't go out and do whatever you want anymore. Me and Drew, didn't go to prom because we had to save money for the baby, and I didn't have the money. Not to mention I was too fat from being pregnant. I was very pregnant, but stuff like that's the first thing that's really stressful.
So your whole life changes
It does
dramatically.
And, yeah, it changes a lot, and your life's not over. People, that's one of the stereotypes about teen parents is your life's over. Your life's not over. It's just changing. And it might be a harder life than, what people would have expected for you or what you would have expected for you. But that's one of the things that, Becky actually helped me out with, was accepting that my life's not over. It's changed.
And learning how to set your goals. I mean, you've accomplished so much already, even managing to parent a young child in the process.
Yeah. I think another thing that was really stressful for me was the sleeping. I mean, Drew had to go back to work 2 days after I had Rayleigh.
And you were also living in various different places while Rayleigh was very young.
Yeah.
So you were relying on other people for housing situations and transportation for a while.
And I think that's kind of stressful too, because it's like you're a parent now. You know what I mean? Like, you're grown up. You don't want to be relying on people to put food on your table and take you here or take you there or, whatever. And it's stressful, First we were living with his parents, and then he got the job at Septic Pro, and I started school, and we moved in with his grandparents to be closer to work and school. And then this summer we actually bought our own house.
Congratulations. That's fabulous. So you've come a long way. What are some of the tips that you would offer other parents about how to manage all of that stress? What were some of the things that you would offer up to them that you learned?
Know that it's only temporary. Your life is always changing.
I remember that one of the things that Becky's most impressed about you is how organized you got. You really learned how to sort of keep things moving. You, as you said before, you had a routine for Rayleigh, and you had yourself organized, and
I think that's one
helped.
of the things that's really important, is that this program kind of helps you understand that and get on a routine. Ever since we got Rayleigh on a routine, she kind of sleeps better. She's, you know to expect, okay, she's going to go down for a nap between 2 and 3, and she's going to be sleeping for an hour and a half. Oh, I can clean the dishes then. I can do my homework then. And that's really the key to getting anything done, is knowing, okay, I need to save this time, and this time to feed Rayleigh. I need, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And planning ahead. So you're organizing your day. You've got the routine, but also planning ahead so that you know what to expect and what you're going to be able to do, for example, when Rayleigh's taking her nap, or what kinds of things you can do, which is great. Setting boundaries. It sounds like because you were moving around a lot, you had many different relationships and lots of different people telling you how and what to do, and offering you lots of advice. How did you manage to keep all of that intact so that you were still being the mom that you wanted to be?
It's hard. People's best, they just want what's best for you and what's best for your kid. They want to give you advice. They've been there, we haven't. And I think for Drew, it was a lot easier to accept the advice and kind of go with it. But for me, I'm really, I've been on my own a lot of my life. And and that makes me a really independent person. And sometimes it was hard for me to accept that, and that's why kind of Becky helped me, because it was someone outside the situation, you know, who wasn't emotionally involved, to kind of give a whole perspective.
Can you give an example of that? What
An example
of when Becky may have supported you through a decision that was difficult to make?
Well, with the crying it out thing, you know, a lot of family. You know,
Everybody had different ideas about what would work.
well, yeah, and I mean, it's hard because a lot of the things that we know now about children are different than the way our parents or our grandparents or whatever would have done that. So learning to understand that people are, you know, people are going to not agree with what you're doing, but you can't let that affect how you're parenting, you know what I mean?
Right. And so the way people did things a long time ago may not be wrong necessarily. They're just very different from the new research that we have now.
Exactly.
One of the big examples is the whole back to sleep when your baby is very tiny and just coming home from the hospital. The recommendations now are that the baby not have any blankets or pillows or bumpers in your crib. And co-sleeping is not necessarily the safest way to keep your baby comfortable. And so we're on top of all that research and helping young parents understand what it is to keep your child safe and sleeping in the right environment, which is very different from what our grandmothers did.
Yeah, that was one of the things that Becky kind of worked with us on, because, like I said, sleeping, it was really stressful when she was, you know, younger, because he was, I mean, sometimes there's weeks when he pulls 65, 70-hour weeks. He wasn't, you know, going to get up with the baby. And, you know, that was hard for not only our relationship, because I was the one always doing it and then taking care of her all day. And in the middle of the night, I would get mad. I'm like, get up with the baby. But then I think in the morning, okay, he has to be up, you know. That's one of the biggest things, is understanding and coming and seeing each other from your point of view, relationship-wise.
And learning how to compromise and learning how to communicate.
Exactly. But eventually it just got to the point where it's like, okay, I'm exhausted. I've been up with my baby for an hour. You know, I would get, you know, I mean, having a baby is a lot of sleep deprivation at the beginning.
Yes.
And it got to the point where I would just kind of lay in bed with her and put her right in my arm right here and let her have the bottle and sleep with us. Big mistake. Because, for one, it's not safe.
Right.
I mean, it's just...
But those decisions that you make when you're so tired.
Exactly. But then it becomes habit and routine, and Becky helped me get out of that habit, you know.
She also talked with you a lot about who your circle of support was. So there was a time when you were able to call your grandmother and say, I really need an hour's worth of sleep, or something like that, and somebody came and gave you a break.
I think a lot of times, like, Drew's mother,
Maybe that's what it was.
she's a night owl. So a lot of times, you know, if Rayleigh would wake up and Drew was out and I was just so stressed out and tired, and, you know, I'd go downstairs and I'd be like, hey, Heidi, can you, you know, help me out for, you know, whatever, a little while. And I'd go outside and, you know, have a smoke or...
That's the other piece that I wanted to mention with such congratulations, is that you were quite a smoker when you became pregnant, and you stopped.
I was smoking about a pack to a pack and a half a day. And Becky, you know, with all the information that tells you what smoking can do to your body and what it can do to your baby, more importantly, you know. So, but I'd go outside and have a smoke, or, you know, Heidi would watch her, get her back to bed for us, and I'd go back to bed, and she'd come and bring her and put her in the crib when we were done.
And so learning how to ask for help, it's always been hard for you. As you said before, you've grown up to be a very independent young woman.
Yeah.
And so asking for help has been hard, but you, with Becky's support, sort of figured out who your circle of support was and who you could ask for.
Yeah. And I think that's really
and that helped you
important
too.
is knowing that you're not the first people who have been in this situation, you know. And you're going to need help, whether you're a 16-year-old parent or a 30-year-old parent. Everyone's going to need a break. Everyone's going to get stressed out.
And learning how to take care of yourself.
Exactly.
And that's a huge piece of it.
Yeah, because, I mean, for a while, you know, and especially at the beginning and, you know, the first 6 months or so, you're so worried about your baby. I mean, I know for me, I've had a loss of a baby in my family, so just that almost anxiety of like, if I
Lot of
don't do this
worry.
right, something's going to happen. And in all of that, you tend to lose yourself.
Right. And you lose some perspective.
Yeah.
And then you
Get stressed.
get stressed.
And I think it's important, even if it's, like for me, I like to knit.
Good for you.
You know, even if it's, okay, Drew's home from work, Rayleigh's fed, you know, let Drew have some time to, you know, play with her for a half hour before, you know, we read to her and give her her bath, and you know what I mean? Just so I can have some me time.
Your own time. Right. And that's learning how to take care of yourself and understanding what it is that you really enjoy. And
Exactly.
knitting is something that truly matters to you. And that's great that you can do that.
And I think it was a little easier for me because, you know, I have Drew. And I know that a lot of my friends or, you know, a lot of people that I know don't have that other person. And I think the best advice is, you know, just, you have to find it somewhere. Whether it's you wake up, okay, you know your kid's going to wake up at 6:30, wake up at 6 and do something for yourself.
And be prepared. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Stay up that extra half hour to watch your favorite TV show. Something to relieve your stress.
Good for you. I'm glad that you were able to figure out what it is you need. That's great. So the Maternal Child Health Program at Home Healthcare Hospice and Community Services is available to all of you, pregnant women, parenting families, who need some extra support in learning how it is to be the parent that you want to be. One of the exercises that Becky and Jewel have done since Rayleigh was 2 are the Ages and Stages questionnaires, which we call ASQs. And those are very brief screenings that involve the parents, where we document how a child is doing developmentally so that we can begin to expect and plan and prepare for the next stages of development. Those results are then shared with the pediatrician, which then supports the relationship, because if the pediatrician sees already that the parent has been working on these Ages and Stages questionnaires and sees ahead that there are questions or concerns or not at all, it becomes a great topic during the pediatric visit. It's also fun to be able to share that with Drew when he gets home from work. It's like, look, these are the things that Rayleigh's doing, and these are the things we're going to be able to look forward to. Or these are some activities that we can be doing to support speech or her gross motor development. So those Ages and Stages questionnaires are really kind of a fun piece. And the home visitors, if there are concerns and parents are wanting to, the home visitor can connect them to other agencies or programs that can do further evaluations and screenings. The other nice thing about the home visiting programs at Maternal Child Health is that, yes, you have Becky coming to visit you once a week, you have the nurse when you need her and the social worker when you need them, but you're also connected to many other agencies or support services that you might be wanting. One of the things you were telling me about, Joel, was your concern about family planning later on after Rayleigh was born, and the conversations that you and Drew were trying to have about what to expect next, because now you're learning how to set goals. And tell us a little bit about how that conversation went and what your resources were for that.
Well, it was kind of this thing, because it's like I was on birth control before, and obviously that didn't work too well. So I asked Becky to kind of bring me out information about birth control.
The different options.
And she did. Excuse
You okay?
Sorry.
Can you get water's coming, I think.
And I decided to go with a depot shot.
You okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So then you went with the depot shot, and that was something that has been working for you and Drew, and because of the information that Becky was able to bring to you, you were able to make that decision, and that's been successful so far. Thank you. So again, one of those things that has been helpful for Becky's visits is the information that she can bring to you. And we all know that everybody makes decisions in different ways. You know, sometimes there's lots of conversation about it, sometimes it's an impulse decision, but knowing how it is you make decisions in your life and how you and Drew have made those decisions together helps us understand what information you need for the next big decision.
Yeah, and I think that it's important to kind of look at all your options. Becky really helped us with that. Like, I knew I didn't want the Marina, you know, because I've known people that have had troubles with those and that. You know, I feel like a lot of times, like even at my, you know, my 6-week checkup after I had Riley, they were trying to push it on me, and I really didn't want it. And Becky, you know, brought out all the information about it and kind of helped me process what would be the best option for me.
So then you were able to take that information to your obstetrician and say, hey, look, this is what I think is going to work best for me.
Yeah,
And
and I
that
think
worked.
that's really important and helpful because you're so worried about the baby and, you know, everything else that, you know, sometimes you tend to let things go that shouldn't be let go.
Right, avoid that decision until...
Yeah, because it's a hard decision or it's too much trouble or, you know, whatever.
The other thing I liked hearing about before, Jewel, was the fact that you and Drew really talked about what you wanted as a family, and what your plans are moving forward, and that you may want another sibling for Rayleigh, but not quite yet, and that you were really thinking about all of those big decisions in the whole scheme of life. And that's
Yeah.
really important.
Um,
Sort of goes back to your whole managing your stress, learning to stay organized and plan ahead, and knowing that you and Drew had the same idea about what your family wanted to look like.
yeah. And I think it's just important to kind of put that plan there because you kind of throw a wrench in your life by having a child unexpectedly. And, I mean, it's not a bad thing. I don't regret her at all, ever.
Right.
I love her more than anything. But it makes things a little more complicated, and the best way to uncomplicate a situation is by organizing the situation or planning the situation. And I think me and Drew talked about it. You know, I would love another kid. I want to wait till I graduate college.
Right?
But I think it's important to know your limits. Like, I know as badly as I would love for Rayleigh to have a little baby brother to play with right now, it's not something that we can afford right now. And it's not something that physically we could handle right now.
Right.
You know?
And so being able to recognize that and figure out what your goals are and how to plan for that is really important.
Yeah.
So you've been with the Maternal Child Health Program since you were pregnant, and now Rayleigh is how old?
She's 14 months.
14 months. And so with the Home Visiting New Hampshire program, which of the home visiting programs, that meant that Becky ended her work with you when Rayleigh turned 1, which
Yeah.
was really hard for Becky. She misses you all terribly, but loves to check in with you and see how things are going. But that doesn't mean your work with Maternal Child Health is ended, or your partnership there. Marianne still comes to see you. As I said, Becky still checks in with you. The nurse is still available to you whenever you need questions answered about a pediatric medical question or any of the other things that may have come up.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the beauties of the program, is that then we can get to know you and Rayleigh for a long time. And when you might have another time in your life when it becomes very stressful and you need some extra support, you know who to call.
Yeah.
And we'll come support you again in more in depth if that's what you need, and connect you to the places that you need connecting to.
And I think also that it's kind of almost like a family. Like, you guys do your Christmas party where kind of all the parents and the kids come, and it's good to get out there and meet other people that are kind of maybe in the same situation. And I mean, I know that's been a big support for me.
Right.
And
And that's one reason why we do this show, is to let everybody know out there that there are other people very much like Jewel who are anxious to get out and meet other people who are parenting.
Yeah. And I think that it's important to know other parents because, you know, really they're the ones that are going to understand you.
And they can become part of your circle of support.
Exactly.
So thank you so much, Jewel, for coming in and talking with us and talking to all of you about Rayleigh and her birth and her prenatal time and parenting and how you've managed to overcome a lot of that stress. You're so poised. You've accomplished so much. And we're also impressed. So for those of you who are interested in maternal child health, we are located at Home Health Care, Hospice, and Community Services, which is in Keene, New Hampshire at 312 Marlborough Street. We also have offices in Fall Mountain and Peterborough. Our maternal child health program has 2.5 social workers, a nurse, 2 home visitors, and we're all ready and anxious to get to know you and partner with you to help you parent or to provide the support that you need. Our hope is that you will learn to feel prepared and ready for your child's birth, that your children will have a safe and healthy environment to come home to after birth, that they will become adaptable members of society based on how you are parenting them, and that families as a whole will learn how they can, their abilities to take the best care of their children and how they can parent so that we can all do this together. We are a community of really caring people, and we'd love to have you be a part of that. If you want to reach us, you can reach us at Home Health Care, Hospice, and Community Services. Our phone number is 603-352-2253. My extension is 132 if you want to call me directly. My name again is Penny Vane. This is Jewel, and her daughter Rayleigh is toddled out to play. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you for being part of Monadnock United Way and Living United.